I don't
Okay.
know. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to part 4 of our squat talk discussion. So today we're going to kind of wrap it up to the best degree that we can, just basically going through how to squat or ways that you can squat. But I just want to preface it by saying everyone's different. Everyone's built a little bit different. So when you're squatting, if you're comparing yourself to someone else, you probably don't look exactly like they do when they're doing it. Like maybe they're bent forward more, maybe they're more upright, maybe their stance is more narrow, maybe their stance is wider. There's various reasons why, anatomically speaking, why that could happen. So don't be too stressed about that. Basically, you just want to be able to make sure that your posture is relatively aligned. So you're bracing through your core. We talked about last time. That you're getting to an appropriate depth, like you're not cutting yourself off at like the 45 mark or whatever, and driving back up, if that's available to you. If you're just starting and you're finding, from a rehabilitation standpoint, if you're getting off of an injury, or maybe you've been very sedentary, you really have to start where it's right for you. But as your fitness improves, as your ability improves, you kind of want to get to the metrics. Certainly, if you want to consider putting a weight onto your shoulders, if you want to load the movement, you want to make sure that you're getting to proper depth, that you're maintaining a strong brace so that your spine doesn't collapse under the weight, and that you're able to do the movement in a pain-free motion. So in other words, you're not feeling any pinching at your hips or anything like that. So with all that said, for most people, when they squat, because of how most of us are built at the hips, we're usually going to want to have some type of like a outward-facing rotation in our hips. So basically, instead of my feet being straight on like a railroad track, I'm going to probably have my feet out a little bit. And if you're kind of wondering, like, well, how wide should my feet be a little bit? There's different ways to kind of go about it. Some people suggest like if you just kind of jump up and down a little bit, and then as you land, you're pretty much going to land about where you're comfortable hitting that squat, right? So most people, when they jump up and down, they don't land, and I mean like jump. Like don't like just kind of land here like little hops kind of thing, but like if you really like try to get like some height into it, and come down, like that's about where I'm going to squat, and I can play around with that a little bit. But you can see that as I land naturally, my feet are turned out just a little bit, and that's probably because of just how my hips are built. So from here, what you're going to want to do is, a couple things I like to think about is just gripping the ground with your feet. So again, some people say, well, you want all your weight into your heels, or some people will say like, don't let your knees go past your toes. I tend to think of it more as keeping the weight into the midfoot. So like your whole foot is involved in driving you up off the ground, and your knees can certainly go past your toes. It's not a problem. So we're here. I tend to grip the ground a little bit and just add a little bit of what I try to corkscrew my feet into the ground. So if we look at my knees, if I'm just kind of relaxed, right? If I don't know, it's kind of hard to see, but if I corkscrew, you can hopefully appreciate that my knees point out a little bit. And I want to maintain that drive or that tension throughout the entirety of the movement. From there, and I apologize, I'm a little bit stiff. I was in the gym earlier, so this may not look pretty. But I want to focus on that brace, so I'm taking out that arch in my back by squeezing through the glutes, getting a belly full of air. I'm going to tighten that up and just, thinking that someone's about to hit me. And from here, I want to think about breaking at the hips and the knees pretty much at the same time, coming down, driving out, and up. That's basically it.
That's a pretty good squat.
Thank you. Now, as I say, not everybody is there. Okay, not everybody has that level of fitness, right? Maybe, again, you've been, coming off of a long injury, maybe you've been sedentary, maybe you're dealing with, my doctor is telling me I have osteoporosis and I need to do more weight-bearing activity. So what are some progressions that a person can do from more of like a physiotherapy standpoint to kind of build themselves up to a full body weight squat, and then eventually onto loading? So one thing that we like to do with patients, and this is with keeping safety in mind, it changes how you do it a little bit, but it kind of gets the point across. And this is going to be more for our population that is a little bit more sedentary, maybe you have a little bit more life experience, maybe you're dealing with some arthritic pain in the knees or the hips or whatever, and we need to strengthen things up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a chair. Just going to go off camera for a moment.
I guess that's what I should have grabbed a chair.
That's all right. Okay. So we're going back to basics here. I'll do a side profile.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Now, for my people that have got a lot of life experience, and it's hard getting in up and down a chair, and like, oh, but I want to, get fitter. I want, to build some muscle and some strength, and I want to hopefully get rid of some of these arthritic pains, and they're telling me that squatting is a good thing to do. So where we are, so for those individuals, we have to think of things like your balance. We have to think of things like your safety. We have to think of things of like, your general mobility, if you're tighter compared to, in our younger years. So from there, or with those in mind, if we use a chair, the chair is nice because it's kind of like a spotter. It's going to help, if you have to sit down, you can sit down, you're not going to hurt yourself. So from here, we want to kind of think of the principles of squatting. I tend to go a little bit more narrow because I'm about to sit into a chair, but from here, you would just kind of sit back, touch the chair with your backside, and then stand back up. If you have to, if that isn't even available to you, you can come down, sit in the chair, and then actually just sit, take a break. And then we want to practice driving back up, right? So again, if we have to regress really far back, we can, have a chair with handles to try to use our arms to help us with this. But in the sense, or if you're beyond that, what you want to try to do is basically maintain your squat posture to the best of your ability. Shift your weight forward a little bit so you can appreciate your weight building into your feet. Maintain that brace, and then from there, I tend to keep my hands out in front. From there, driving forward up into a standing position, and wash, rinse, and repeat for all my people with hair. So again, we're coming down, touching. Again, if you have to take the weight off completely, that's fine. Coming forward, building that weight back into your legs, into your feet, feeling it, and then driving up. And what I mean by that is you don't want to kind of do one of these kind of things where you're using a lot of momentum to drive up, because this is one where we really want to build the muscular strength, and we don't want to cheat the movement by using too much momentum. So we do that for a while. And then you get to the point where, hey, that feels pretty good. That's no problem. Other progressions you can do is you can use a wall. You can put a ball in your back and practice your squat motion on the ball. It takes some of your body weight out of it. Sure.
We need a wall.
We don't really have a wall in this area.
We don't have a wall.
It's kind of well back over there.
Yeah. Let's go over here. Problems with the props.
Here, let me grab the orange ball. I think I'll demonstrate this one only because it's kind of a front-on shot.
Oh yeah?
Just in case.
The skirt might just not be a great idea.
Just in case.
Just in case, okay.
But here, what you can do is you can hold the curtain out of the way.
I will do that, okay.
Okay, so next progression. And again, we're still in like our physio type style, right? You don't need a ball, but I tend to show people with it. But if you don't have it, you can certainly just use the wall itself.
It does make it a little bit more challenging, but it is a good progression from the chair, right? Because you have a little bit less stability.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite a bit harder.
It's a little bit harder, so you have to watch about your balance. But anyway, so from here, same principles, right? So just naturally, I'm going to be leaning back a little bit. It's just the sacrifice I have to make to put my weight into the ball here. But again, I'm thinking about corkscrewing or turning my feet into the ground. That activates just the glute medius muscles, which we talked about in the first part of our discussion, where people tend to be weak where their knees collapse in. So it's just a cue just to remind myself just to keep those guys active. I'm going to be bracing, and from here, again, we're just coming down into our squat position and back up. It's more challenging though. I can get further depth and I have to maintain and hold my weight, especially down here at the bottom, and then drive back up, okay? Progression number 2. So after you worked on that for a little while and you can comfortably do, say sets of 8 to 10, 3 times in a row with minimal effort, then you're probably ready to try to do just a freestanding bodyweight squat. Again, how far wide your knees are, how close they are together, everyone's a little bit different. You just have to listen to your body and just kind of play around and experiment a little bit. And the nice thing about this is we haven't added any weight yet, so we're going to be doing this relatively safely. So then to review, I tend to have my feet slightly wider than shoulder width apart, turned out a little bit. I want to focus on that brace, get my belly full of air, tighten up, squeezing through the glutes, and then from there, driving down and up, trying to get as much depth as I can without losing tension in the muscles. So what I mean by that is I don't want to come like down so far that I start to collapse down and up, because I don't want to hang off of my erectors or any of my passive tissues. So you always want to maintain that just to that point where you feel like you're at maximum depth, maximum contraction, and then you want to drive back up purposefully with speed. Once you're able to do sets of 8 to 10, 8 to 12, 3 times in a row, very comfortably, very easily with just your body weight, then it's time to potentially start looking at adding onto load. And what I mean by that is just adding additional weight onto your body while you're going through the movement. As you're adding weight to it, this is where form and technique and bracing really become imperative, because now you're at risk of doing something where potentially, the weight could shift you forward, you could collapse at the back a little bit, and that's where potentially injuries could happen. So always, recommendation is build your foundation up first. Obviously, I talked about a population that, potentially was struggling to get in and out of a chair, and how they can kind of regress something back as fundamental or as athletic as a squat to something that they're able to do. Obviously, squats are used by, pretty much every athlete you can think of. So it's a compound movement that's a fundamental strength builder and athleticism builder in pretty much the entire population. The reason why I discussed the chair thing, though, is I just want to get the point across that it's not something that is only restricted to those types of people. It's not just for athletes. It's not just for people that want to go out and perform in their sport. It's a fundamental movement, and what we mean by that is it's super important that you're able to bend down and stand back up in the real world, right? It's how we pick stuff up. If we fall down, if we slip on the ground, if we slip on like a slippery surface and have to get back up, that's how you stand back up, or you're lunging at the very least. But having that strength, having that mobility accessible to you will help keep you safe in the environment, and hopefully keep you injury free as well. Yeah. I would also recommend, if you're very, very new to exercise and you want to start exploring things like squats or deadlifts or whatever, talk to someone who knows how to do them, right? It could be a personal trainer. It could just be a friend that, has been training for years and has that kind of a background. But have someone help coach and bring you through at least the very fundamental sticky points. Don't get too worked up over, I shifted a little bit this way, or I pitched a little bit too much that way, or whatever. That's going to happen 100% of the time, so don't worry about it. But you do want to make sure that, especially when you're getting to the point where you're loading, that your bracing is on point, your mobility is on point, your depth is on point, and that you're using the style of squat that prevents any type of compression or pinching in your hips, just to make it a more enjoyable experience. Yeah. I think that's it, guys. Thanks so much again for joining us. Again, there's so much information out there on this type of stuff, so if you're really interested, there's a gazillion resources you can check online. There's books, there's articles and papers written all about this stuff. YouTube is becoming a fast medium for people to learn about things, so there's lots of information out there and lots of different opinions on how to do stuff, so it's always good to educate yourself, take it all in, and experiment and have fun. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. Thanks so much again for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace.